Hello there and welcome to this lecture on social networking addiction. My name is Dr. Zaheer Hussain and I am a senior lecturer in psychology at the Nottingham-Trent University. So today I will be considering different types of addictions, not just social networking addiction. I will briefly introduce you to the area of the psychology of social networking. I will consider a definition of social networking site use and particularly addiction to social networking sites or problematic use of social networking sites. And we will try to consider the question of whether we should be concerned about social networking site use and overuse. Then I will move on to looking at I will look at the theories of social networking, just a brief overview of social networking theories, and then I will consider research studies and then provide some sort of conclusion. Before I do that, I want to provide you with a brief biography. So my area of interest is technology use. I have a PhD in psychology. So I have been researching the area of internet use for over a decade now. So I'm a psychologist, researcher, and senior lecturer in psychology at the Nottingham-Trent University here in the UK. My research interests are quite broad, but they focus on the area of behaviour addictions and technology use. And when I use the term technology use, I am referring to social networking site use, smartphone use, binge TV watching, such as watching a series on Netflix or Amazon. And I also look at the use of the internet, the internet in general. I teach in the areas of statistics, research methods, cyber psychology, and social psychology. My teaching is primarily focused on internet use, technology use, and I tend to use quantitative research methods when conducting research, but also when teaching research methods. In terms of my hobbies and interests, I like cycling, I like playing football, I like to eat out and socialize with friends and family. I also have a particular interest in productivity, and I'm interested in the area of data science and machine learning and how algorithms work. So this is a little bit about me. You can, if you would like to know more about my research interests or get in contact with me, I've provided some information on the first slide of this lecture, but also I've also provided a link to my research and teaching blog at the end of these slides. So when we talk about social networking site use, it's important to consider technology use and addiction. So we know that that social networking site use, social networking in general is very popular now, and it's something which is prevalent in our lives. So when we consider social networking, we are not just focusing on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok even. We are also considering messaging apps such as WhatsApp. So this is something we need to keep in mind. So they are now very popular, and some people may consider their use of these networking sites as problematic or addictive. So what is addictive? There are many behaviors which people may feel, and researchers also may consider addictive, and there's quite a lot of research now in the area of social networking sites, video games, online gaming, Netflix viewing or TV viewing, online viewing behavior. So these are just a few behaviors which we may consider as addictive. Also, something to consider is that the internet in general is a platform or a space where we go to. We may log on to the internet on our phones, on our smartphones, or using an iPad, for example, and then we will then click on an app or access an app. So this is something we need to consider also. So it's important to consider other potentially addictive behaviors, not just social networking sites. And when we're talking about addiction, what we need to consider is what are the components that make up an addictive behavior. So research has demonstrated that behaviors such as smartphone use, and some researchers have used the term smartphone addiction, has several similar characteristics to substance-related disorders as classified by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders. So these characteristics are compulsive behavior, functional impairment, withdrawal, and tolerance. And when we're looking at behaviors which may be considered as addictive, research has also explored behavioral addictions more generally. And when considering different types of behavioral addictions, the criteria, the components of addiction have been applied to certain behaviors. And the components of addiction consist of salience, mood modification, tolerance, withdrawal symptoms, interpersonal and intrapersonal conflict, and relapse. And this is something which has been used by this components model has been used by many researchers, and particularly Griffiths and Brown were the researchers who made use of this components model very early on and applied it to behaviors such as video games and then online gaming behavior. And since then, more recently, the components model of addiction has been applied to various behaviors. So researchers have used the core components of addiction to examine problematic smartphone use. And what's important also is to consider that to remember that smartphone use and other potentially addictive behaviors may not be classified as addictive by the World Health Organization or the APA. So the World Health Organization considers excessive smartphone use as a public health concern, which requires further investigation. And many of these behaviors do require further investigation, and that's something to highlight when you're researching a topic area or a behavior which is potentially addictive. It's something to keep in mind whether it's been classified as an addiction. So, as I said, the World Health Organization now considers gaming disorder or internet gaming disorder as a official illness, and there's been a few news stories such as this one here, and which showing that how that they now consider it addictive. And when we are looking at a behavior which is potentially addictive, we try to compare it to the core components model. So here on this slide here, you can see on the left hand side you have the different components: salience, mood modification, tolerance, and so on. And here it's been applied to internet gaming disorder. So you have a brief description of the behavior. So for example, salience, it's preoccupation with internet games. The individual thinks about previous gaming activity, and it's something which dominates their day-to-day life. Mood modification, the use of internet games to escape or relieve a negative mood. So in this example, we use gaming disorder, but if you're interested in social networking site use, you would try to apply the same components to social networking behavior. So again, when we try to measure whether a behavior is potentially addictive, the core components model is a good model to apply to the behavior. And in our case, we're interested in social networking site use. So, social network addiction, how do we define it? Andreasen and Patterson have defined social networking site addiction as an activity that occupies one's thinking, is driven by a strong motivation to log on or use social networking sites, and to devote so much time and effort to social networking sites that it impairs other social activities such as work, studies, relationships, and health and well-being. It is not listed in the DSM-5 or the ICD-11, unlike internet gaming disorder, so it's not listed as an addiction. So it's an area where further research is required. So having said that, a better phrase to use is problematic social networking site use. And in one of my recent research papers, I argue alongside my colleague that problematic social networking site use is a better phrase to use, and addiction is a debatable phenomenon, and what's kind of confused the area is that researchers have used different terms such as Facebook addiction, internet communication disorder, smartphone addiction. They've even used smartphone addiction and applied that to social networking site use. Okay, so it's to avoid that confusion. It is I believe, and so do many researchers, that the term problematic use is better. Okay, so problematic social networking site use is a better term to use. So in this lecture, I may use the term a Facebook addiction or social networking addiction because what I'm doing here, I'm retaining the original terminology used by authors when describing studies. So in terms of research evidence, there's increasing empirical evidence showing associations between problematic social networking site use and psychological characteristics. So research has shown that Facebook addiction was significantly predicted by levels of Facebook use and having a depressive character. Also, research has shown that weekly time commitment, social motives, severe depression, anxiety, and insomnia positively predicted Facebook addiction. So, in a broader context, problematic technology use can lead to negative effects on mental health and psychological functioning, particularly in adolescents, so in younger users. And then there are the physical aspects, the physical problems which may ensue due to the use of technology. So research has shown that smartphone use is associated with neck and shoulder pain, and I think many people have felt that pain in our neck and shoulders when we are when we're arching over to look at our smartphones. So it's having an impact on our bodies and our posture. Also, research has shown that smartphone use in students is associated with poor physical fitness and poor academic performance. And it's also influenced other types of behaviours, and I'll come on to that soon in this lecture. When considering social networking site use, there are reports such as by the Pew Research Center. So this slide shows that they found, the researchers here found that 95% of teenagers have access to a smartphone, and 45% say they are online almost constantly. Being online constantly can cause issues for some people. So this is an area where researchers have seen issues in people's lives. So it's impacting on their studies, their work, and it's also influencing their mental health. What we also have seen that we've seen that some of the the CEOs of social media companies and technology companies have come out and said that, that social networking site use are having a negative impact on people's behaviour, and they have said that they won't let their own family members use these social networking platforms. And something to consider is why are they so addictive, and why are they are they leading to problems in people's lives? So, in looking at the addiction etiology, or the etiology of problematic use, there's a lot going on really. So here on this slide, I've included information about the biological aspects. For some people, they experience some sort of reward from posting or some content or someone liking their post, and this provides social validation. So it encourages people to use the social networking site more, and that it becomes like a dopamine-driven feedback loop. So some of the CEOs, technology, the developers of these social networking sites have come out and spoken openly about how they are addictive and how they can cause problems in some users. In this image, I've tried to show the cycle. So you have social networks. You have a person who may use a particular social networking site. They may write or share a post or a comment on something, and then some users may wait for a reaction, such as a thumbs up or a like, or someone may share their post, and then this is something which may lead to a feeling, a good feeling in them, and this encourages them to continue using the social networking site. So again, the mechanics behind the behavior of using a social networking site is something which we must consider when discussing problematic use. In terms of explanations for the associations between problematic social networking site use and mental health, and specifically psychiatric disorder symptoms, what we know is that a number of research studies have shown that problematic social networking site use behavior some individual may experience a constant urge to check their social networking sites, and again, this supports some of the research which has looked at the mechanisms of how these social networking sites are developed, and how they try to encourage people to use the sites more often and excessively sometimes. There are some researchers, such as Andreas and et al., have suggested that those with ADHD symptoms may excessively use social networking sites due to the constant updates from these platforms. So the beeping and the vibrating of their phone encourages them to go and have a look at their smartphone screen. What we also know is that there are associations between mental health, such as depression, anxiety, stress, and the use of these technologies. More recently, researchers have reported that there may be a feeling of craving for social interactions, and that self-validation, which can then lead on to problematic use. as researchers have also shown that young users may excessively use social networking sites in order to avoid or reduce depression anxiety. So this finding by Worsley et al. Supports the work of Seabrook et al., who claim that there's a possibility that the relationship between problematic social networking site use and depression symptoms may be bidirectional. So people may be using these. Someone who has depressive symptoms may use a social networking site to reduce their feelings of depression. So it may not just be one way. There might not be a one-way interaction. It's bidirectional. Again, further research is needed into the associations between these behaviors. In terms of theories, the iPace model of problematic internet use is which has been recently updated, and I think is a very good model, which researchers, psychologists, psychiatrists, and generally healthcare advisors should really consider this model. There are two stages to it. There's the early stages. So on this slide, you can see that the person's core characteristics are important, and when we're focusing on those core characteristics, we are interested in their specific needs, their motives, their values, their earlier experiences. Psychopathology is also something which we need to consider. And then their interaction with the behavior. So it's their interaction with a social networking site. Okay, so this may lead to a perception of external and internal triggers. And so there are cognitive aspects. There are also the social aspects, and then there's the motivational aspects. So moving on to the later stages, here we can see that there is a reaction to the cues of a social networking site, and this may lead to a specific habitual behavior. A person may find the use of a social networking site as it might provide them with a gratifying experience, and this may impact them cognitively, and then which then leads to the use of the social networking site, which becomes more prevalent in their lives, and this is where the addiction may or the problematic behavior may develop. Okay, so it's a very interesting theory. It considers many different aspects, and I would suggest that you do have a look at the iPace model, and see how a look at the different mechanisms within the model and how it can be applied, not just to this behavior of using a social networking site, but also to other behaviors. The incentive sensitization theory is another theory which is important to consider. So here I've displayed the different stages of the theory. So you can see here the addiction or the problematic use of a social networking site develops initially as a process of mood enhancement, where the individual may enjoy and eventually crave the positive aspects of the behavior. So it's something which they may enjoy to begin with. So at the initial stages, there's this results in strong positive associative or Pavlovian learning, and then further on, it becomes there becomes this disconnect between liking engagement in the behavior and wanting engagement in the behavior, and this is where things develop and become problematic for the individual. There may be a feeling of a constant urge to chase the positive feelings, which they experienced in the early stages of use. And this is where the behavior may become problematic. So that's some of the theory. Now looking at some of the research, just to build on some of the research I mentioned earlier. So I conducted a research, a review study into problematic social networking site use and comorbid psychiatric disorders. So in this review paper, we were interested in a number of psychiatric disorder symptoms such as ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety, stress. So in this study, our general findings suggested that problematic social networking site use co-occurs with all the psychiatric disorder symptoms which we examined. And we found that the studies reviewed showed associations between the problematic social networking site use and these disorder symptoms, particularly in adolescence. And the variables which were the most pertinent were depression and anxiety, and which were associated with they were mostly associated with problematic social networking site use. So the reference to this study is in the slides at the end of this lecture. And more recently, we considered social networking site use in China, and we found very similar findings. Which was interesting, but also provided us with an insight into Chinese social networking site use. So we know that problematic behavior exists. So what can we do about it? This is a question which we need to consider from a practical standpoint. So there's been some progress. We now, if you on your smartphone and even on your tablet or PC, you have some well-being settings which you can activate or find, and these settings will show you how often you are using your smartphone, for example, and what applications you're using. So you can use these settings as an intervention to help you reduce your screen time. We also know from one of the studies I conducted with colleagues, we found that being in connection with nature, that connection can lead to a decrease in problematic smartphone use and a decrease in anxiety. So this is an interesting paper which from a study which we conducted. It shows that being out in the open, going for a walk where there is greenery and that feeling of being connected with nature can have a big impact on our health and well-being. Other things to consider are prevention and treatment. So with many interventions, the idea is to decrease our use of technology, and we know that there are a number of ways we can do this. So we have the cognitive behavioral therapy. You have pharmacological treatments, and even the multifamily group therapy. So these are some approaches that can be used to help us to tackle these problematic behaviors. And just to finish off, to provide you with a conclusion, there are several factors that have been associated with problematic social networking site use. And we know that some of the psychiatric symptoms co-occur with problematic use. And technology is not all bad. Okay, what counts is how we use it. Okay, so if we can consider how we use social networking sites and the reasons for using it, and we can manage our online behaviors, then technology may lead to the use of technology can have a positive impact on our life. And other things to consider in terms of research, future research, what's important is that we consider and we explore ways. We look at both the ways we use technology in general, and consider ways to improve our use of technology. So this is an area where I think it's an area which is growing, and it continues to grow. There are new forms of technology always being introduced, and we tend to get quite excited when something new comes along, and we want to use it, and we want to see how it can enhance our lives. But we also need to be aware of our own behaviors and have that period of self reflection, which I think is really important. In terms of further readings, I've included a number of research studies which you may find of interest. The iPace model paper here by Brand et al. is a must read, I believe. Some of my research studies looking at problematic social networking site use and personality, for example, and general technological addictions, you may find of interest, and that may help you to gain more of an insight into the area. And my paper here with Professor Starchevich is a brief and an interesting read. I think, and I hope you'll enjoy reading it too. And it will provide you with some of the important points and where we should be heading in terms of research. So there's a lot there for you to look at, and I hope you will do some of the further readings. And finally, there's my research and teaching blog. Here's the link to it. There's lots of content on there. I tend to post comments or links to interesting research, or my own research, but also other people's research in the area of cyber psychology, technology use. So I hope you will head over to my blog and have a read of some of the content there. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this lecture. You can, if you have any other questions or queries, please do drop me an email, and my contact details you can find at my blog, or you can find at the start of this lecture. Thank you very much, and goodbye.